Hi, I'm Christina Lopez. This is CNS News. In this edition, reporter Brian Gibble talks with farmers about their struggle to grow cleaner cotton in the Central Valley. Rosa Ramirez heads to San Carlos, a city with a novel idea to cut its more than $3 million deficit. But first, how much would you pay for chocolate? Hunter Holcomb reports on rising cacao prices.
Chocolate is one of the oldest foods in human history, and one of the most beloved. But trouble is brewing on the supply side, and prices could soon skyrocket.
Nobody's making enough money to stay in business. And this has been an endemic, sort of a structural problem that's gone on for the last 150 years. And now it's coming home to roost.
John Scharfenberger is a leading expert in cacao cultivation. He says that a few countries have modernized, but overall the industry is suffering from outdated farming methods.
The problems of cacao growing are throughout the world, whether I'm in Central America or South America. I just see things being done in the same old-fashioned way.
Cacao plants only grow within 20 degrees of the equator. A full 2/3 of the world's supply comes from West Africa. Here, many farmers are abandoning their fields for more profitable industries.
So that means the kids aren't coming back to those fields. There's no reason to.
The Bay Area has been producing high-end chocolate as far back as the 1800s. Today, premium chocolatiers often use products that require 3 times the cacao as a standard Hershey bar, and can cost up to 10 times as much. Cacao prices have already risen 150% in the last 3 years, and one industry expert in Ghana recently warned that in 20 years, chocolate will be like caviar.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah. Here you receipt. Thank you.
But high prices won't scare everyone away. Chocolate maker Michael Ricciuti points out that, for many people, it's not a casual indulgence.
There's people that just really want it. So there's the addicted people, probably like myself, have a kind of a very addictive personality with, like certain things I like to eat. I say that people will just, they'll go for it. They'll spend the money. As I said previously, if it just gets to this crazy price, I could see there'll be some pushback.
The one thing manufacturers agree on is that the problem lies with the farms, and the solution is modernizing farming methods. Brad Kitzner oversees chocolate production at Cho.
It's a very exciting time in chocolate right now because people are, farmers and manufacturers alike are realizing that there's a lot of things that we can do to improve the industry in general.
There's no reason chocolate farmers should be poor. There's no reason that children need to work in cacao farms at all. And there's no reason that cacao shouldn't be delicious.
But whether it remains affordable is another question. This is Hunter Holcomb for CNS News.
Every fall, tufts of cotton blanket the San Joaquin Valley. The crop provides an estimated 20,000 jobs statewide. It also uses more pesticide per acre than any crop in the country. But some farmers want to change that.
Hey, I'm Chad Crivelli. I'm a third-generation farmer in California, second-generation cotton farmer.
Crivelli works with the Sustainable Cotton Project, a nonprofit that helps farmers cut back on chemicals.
It takes a little more time, a little more thought process to try to figure out ways to control pests other than with pesticides, with chemical sprays.
But cutting back on pesticides is better for farm workers and residents of nearby towns.
I do not know of a more intense practice requiring toxic pesticides than cotton.
Oscar Sablan has been a doctor in the San Joaquin Valley for 27 years.
It affects not just the handlers, it affects also the people that are chopping cotton or weeding the cotton.
Luckily, large machines, not people, harvest most of the valley's cotton and send it through several processing steps. One result is mountains of seed, stockpiled to be sold as cattle feed. And another is pure cotton fiber, packaged for export. But farmers worry that fluctuating world market prices will cut their profits. Last year, Crivelli set aside 10 of his acres to grow organic cotton, hoping to get a higher price by eliminating pesticides. But it didn't work.
Organic cost about 4 times more to grow than conventional, and the yield was reduced by about half. On the organic acreage, it was a big loss to have to grow it organically and sell it conventionally. Yeah.
So Crivelli doesn't grow organic cotton anymore. He cuts his pesticide use by up to 70%, only using it as a last resort.
The end yield is the same, the quality of fiber is the same. So basically the profit comes in from your expenses going down by not having to spend so much on certain pesticides.
Even with an unpredictable market, he's found a way to make a profit and grow cleaner cotton, and that's good for consumers, farmers, and the environment. This is Brian Gibble reporting for CNS News.
This firefighter is training for a job that will soon disappear. Come next year, he and his chief, Doug Fry, will have to look for work elsewhere.
As it stands right now, I'm probably going to lay off all 42 people, or actually 48 people.
And he worries what will happen to his team.
It's the unknown certainty right now of will there be positions for them at the end of this time? Will there be a spot for them to go to? And who or where?
San Carlos is in a financial bind. It already outsources police services, payroll, and park maintenance. And now the assistant city manager says outsourcing the fire department will save them $1 million a year.
You don't have a mature city like San Carlos that's been around for 85 years that after 85 years suddenly switches from full services to contract.
San Carlos and its neighbor Belmont combined their fire department 30 years ago. But San Carlos is the wealthier of the two cities, so they pay 53% of the cost. That and more generous union contracts means the city is looking for a way out.
We believe that the better solution is to expand on what's existing with partnerships and really utilize economies of scale through fire services in San Mateo County.
Union Rep Gary Jacobs says San Carlos could have brought in other cities and created regional fire services across the county. But no one asked the unions for input.
We've always told the city that we're always willing to talk to them, we're willing to work with them on costs and controlling costs, and we've been a committed partner in this organization from the beginning, but San Carlos has thus far been unwilling or unable to do that.
But San Carlos is moving along with its plans, and it isn't the only city considering outsourcing its fire services.
One of our council members said we may be one of the first to do this, we won't be the last, and I think that's probably right.
Are you all right, John?
So nobody knows who will be putting out fires in San Carlos by the end of next year. It could be another fire department or a private company. The city council will decide in February. This is Rosa Ramirez reporting for CNS News.
Now we turn to the world of science. Roberto Daza explains how a single atom will carry us into the future of technology. At UC Davis, Becca Friedman talks with veterinarians who are using forensics to put an end to dogfighting. Next up, remote-controlled beetles. Lauren Rosenfeld shows us how researchers are using technology to control live insects.
It's the stuff of science fiction, the cyborg beetle, a project at UC Berkeley where researchers are trying to master the remote control flight of live insects.
Basically, it entails putting very small neurostimulating wires into the brain of the insect and into the flight muscles or near the flight muscles, and putting on their backs essentially tiny little backpacks that have a microcontroller and a battery.
The ultimate goal is to try to fly the insect like a little radio-controlled airplane.
We can send commands remotely through the radio to the insect's backpack, and that backpack will then issue commands through the wire stimulation command, specific pulses, to either the brain or the muscles of the insect.
Based on his research in unmanned helicopter dynamics, Professor Peter Abil works with Maharbis' team to develop more advanced flight control experiments.
What you'll see in the video here is an experiment where we show that by stimulating in the optical lobe of the beetle, we can initiate and cessate flight. We've also been looking at, can we make the beetle turn left or right at our command?
Researchers stimulate the flight muscles to make the beetle turn.
What we really would like to have is not just a left turn or a right turn, but a graded response, where we can say, now at this particular stimulation and variation in the stimulation, we can turn anything between, let's say, 0 and 45 degrees.
Tiny controllable insects could one day be used to navigate difficult locations, like searching for survivors in the rubble of a natural disaster. The next frontier for radio-controlled insects? The housefly. This is Lauren Rosenfeld for CNS News.
We put this in his mouth, swab all around there. Oh, look at your big mouth. Dogfighting is a vicious underground crime involving thousands of dogs and tens of thousands of people. But one swab of Scooby's cheek may help Beth Wickham put an end to it.
It exists in every state in the United States, and it's been growing a lot. So that's why they're trying to come up with additional tools to fight these guys, to fight the fighters.
In the summer of 2009, a series of dogfighting raids led to discussions between prominent animal welfare groups in the U.S. to start a canine DNA database at UC Davis called CODIS.
The DNA was used to link them not only to different dogfighting organizations, but to each other. That's where we become a voice for those animals.
Captain Cindy Machado was an integral part of one of the biggest dogfighting raids in California.
I can't begin to tell you what it's like to see an actual dog involved in a dogfight. These dogs are just brutalized from every inch of their bodies.
Convictions are rare. A code of silence surrounds the fights. Evidence is hard to come by, and the victims, rather than the criminals, end up behind bars.
It's putting science behind the actual case. So with a DNA database, with any kind of DNA markers, we're learning something about the animal.
The testing that we do in animals is exactly the same thing they do in humans. We use the same techniques, the same equipment, and the same types of analyses. The more information we get, the more samples we get, the stronger that database will become. And so the bigger it becomes, the more powerful it becomes. And it has to keep growing.
I hope that it's a tool that will really put a message out to abusers of all kinds that we will get evidence on every single dog out there. And if you're going to harm an animal, be prepared that we will track you down and we will end dog fighting once and for all.
This is Becca Friedman for CNS News.
At IBM's campus in San Jose, scientists are manipulating atoms, life's building blocks, in ways that could revolutionize modern electronics.
The mission of my particular lab here at IBM Almaden is to not worry about making things just a little bit smaller, but jump to the ultimate end of this roadmap, which is the scale of single atoms.
To do this, scientists are ignoring Moore's law, a principle that has governed computer science since its infancy. It holds that the capacity of our technology doubles every 18 months.
Now, if we could do this, we could store about 10,000 times more information in our everyday devices than we could nowadays. This would basically allow you to store all the movies you ever want to watch in your portable electronic device.
Right now, the most dense storage devices that we have need tens of thousands of atoms to store one bit of information.
To store that amount of information on a single atom, the team is turning to a decades-old device, the Scanning Tunneling Microscope. Invented in 1981 by scientists in Switzerland, it is still the best tool to examine individual atoms.
The Scanning Tunneling Microscope is similar to a tool that we are all familiar with, the old-fashioned record player. In a record player, you have a needle, and that needle is running in the track.
The needle, in this case the microscope's robotic arm, delivers a current to the solitary atom, which acts like a tiny bar magnet. The information that scientists measure is similar to the way a computer reads the data stored on a chip. But instead of the typical sequence of ones and zeros to indicate information, they look for magnetic information, or the direction in which the atom is pointing.
If you break out of this paradigm to be limited to having either 1 or 0 as bits of information, you can think of ways to speed up computations that would not work on any classical computer.
Their research could redefine the nature of personal computing, but Heinrich and his team are the first to say that it could be years before consumer products catch up to their work.
We are actually not aiming to develop products in the near term or even in a few years down the line, but we're working on potential product applications that are, decades down the line.
This is Roberto Daza, reporting for CNS News.
Now we go from IBM Labs to the streets of San Francisco, where Patty Espinosa learns how finding a place to rest will be even harder for the city's homeless. On the Bay Bridge, Carl Nassman catches a ride with Carpoolers, who say a toll increase is causing turmoil in their community. And from picking up your laundry to shopping for groceries, Whitney Pennington looks at a new company that will do it all for you for a price.
Like many San Franciscans, Diane Barghouti is waiting in line to get lunch. But this time, it's for someone else. Barghouti is a runner for TaskRabbit.com, a new company that connects people who need errands run with people who want to run them.
I've done things as simple as picking up a soy latte steamer for someone's boyfriend who is sick. It's really just whatever people need to get off their plate.
The truck was way down in Soma. There's no
it was a perfect opportunity for us to say, oh, we'll have someone bring it for us.
TaskRabbit founder and CEO Leah Buskey came up with the idea in 2008 when she needed food for her yellow lab.
We thought, wouldn't it be nice if there was a place online you could go, name your price, say we needed dog food. We've created an on-the-ground network of runners in Boston and San Francisco that then get real-time alerted on their cell phones or via email. And they can look at the job and make bids on it.
Sometimes by the time I get on the site, even if it's instantaneous, somebody was already on the site and they bid on the task and it's already assigned.
The site attracts a diverse group of roughly 1,000 runners, from students to stay-at-home parents to retirees. They perform tasks ranging in price from less than $10 to over $100.
Right now I substitute teach, I work at a coffee shop, and I do TaskRabbit. I think you'd have to be very, very active to be able to support yourself fully on it, but I think it's doable.
Leah Buskey says what sets TaskRabbit apart from Craigslist and other competitors is its focus on safety. The company puts all potential runners through a full background check.
Everyone on TaskRabbit.com has a profile with a picture and ratings and reviews.
But who would need, or even want, to contract their errands out to a stranger?
Yeah, I would pay if I needed something fast and I didn't have somebody handy to help me already.
I'm more rich in time than I am in money, so I probably just do them myself.
Though not for everybody, TaskRabbit is growing. It now serves tens of thousands of customers in Boston and the Bay Area. This is Whitney Pennington for CNS News.
At carpool sites all over the East Bay, drivers pick up 2 riders to cross the Bay Bridge in the carpool lane, saving time and money during rush hour. But the once free ride is over. In July, the Bridge Authority imposed a $2.50 toll for carpoolers, leaving these commuters with an uncomfortable question. Who pays the toll?
I don't bring it up. I just sort of drive, and if somebody says, hey, would you like $1? I say, that would be very gracious if you'd be willing to give it.
I always offer, and then it's up to the driver whether they want to take it or not.
And I usually would take $1 or whatever, but I don't ask for money.
This summer, tolls increased across the board. Rush hour fees went up from $4 to $6 for non-carpoolers. But even with the new toll, carpoolers still save $3.50. With increased tolls, you'd expect more people to be sharing a ride. But according to transportation officials, daily carpool traffic on the Bay Bridge has dropped by more than 4,000 cars. That's almost 25%, which is troubling for some commuters.
The fact that carpooling has dropped that much over the Bay Bridge because of the toll, that's just terrible.
What we are seeing are intended consequences. That is a shift of travel behavior. We have more traffic traveling prior to 5 a.m., more traffic after 10 a.m.
In addition, it turns out there may have been fewer legitimate carpoolers and more fare cheats than previously thought.
Prior to the institution of a toll, you could just zip through here and run the risk of the CHP being out here to count you. And if they didn't count you, you got to wait toll free.
Researchers at UC Berkeley are surveying casual carpoolers with results expected next summer. Until then, one question remains unanswered. Who pays?
It's not totally consistent. It's all that sort of unwritten, mysterious carpool protocol.
In Oakland, Carl Nassman for CNS News.
The new sit-lie law means exactly what it says. People will not be allowed to sit or lie on sidewalks between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. They risk warnings, a fine, or even jail time. Those most affected are homeless people.
How do you get the homeless or who have no money to pay for a fine?
John Rivera and Leanne Sweeter prefer sleeping on the streets to shelters. The law, which barely passed, means they may lose their daytime resting spots. And if the police approach them,
Just move like he says.
Merchants say that allowing people to sit or lie on the sidewalks near their business often scares customers away. But Beverly Masri says homeless people around her store have not hurt her business.
They tend to move along. They don't hang out so much.
I'm 37 years old.
Marlon Muñiz Cruz has been on the streets for 4 years. He says the city needs to find a place for its homeless.
Quitamos de la calle por porcentaje de personas. Tenemos que facilitarle otros servicios. ¿Cómo darle un espacio para que ellos se recreen?
I don't particularly like the the idea of making them criminals just because they don't have a lot of things.
Police are still waiting for instructions on how to enforce the law, which will include some exceptions. For example, if you're waiting for public services like at a bus stop, or if you have disabilities. Until then, all those sitting or lying on sidewalks will just have to move along. This is Patty Espinosa for CNS News.
And now Justin Jewell visits 3 shop owners who are competing for an unusual world record. Christopher Connolly introduces us to a man who is using music to bring harmony to the streets of Richmond. And when the going gets tough, a good laugh really helps. Meet one man who is trying to bring some comic relief to the unemployed. Malika Minan has the story.
For the 12% of California's unemployed population, losing their job is no laughing matter. But Eric Origin, a best-selling author, hopes to bring some humor into their lives with The Adventures of Unemployed Man, a graphic novel he began working on in 2009.
The humor that we bring to people is something that is acknowledging reality, but at the same time, in a light way. It allows people to kind of stay with the grief that they're experiencing in a way that helps them process it and come to terms with it, rather than denying that it's there.
The graphic novel follows the efforts of a group of jobless crusaders, including Ultimatum, who went from being the dark knight of self-help to unemployed man, in search for work while fighting the evil forces of the invisible hand.
I thought he would be a nice relief for our group who week after week go out there and try to find work and try to do what it takes to get there, and hear people tell them, you know, you got to network, you got to do this, you got to get on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. So for someone just to come in and kind of make light of the situation while at the same time telling the truth, I felt like would be really valuable for the group.
A regular at the San Francisco Professional Career Network meetup, Ann Telthorst was laid off in January.
When you're unemployed, it's really hard to laugh at yourself, and also he's really skewering the establishment in a really good way. So I think it's just a really good sort of an ego booster sort of a thing that I think we all need.
And like Anne, Eric too is spending his days looking for a job. Making only 50 cents per copy sold, unemployment is close to home for Eric.
You know, I'm still looking at job leads every day. You know, I'm unemployed at the moment. And, you know, not sure exactly how I'm going to make it through January.
This is Malika Menon reporting for CNS News.
I started playing, I guess, when I was about 13.
Jay Kirkland is passionate about music, playing it, and teaching it too.
Myself, I get the thrill of watching the kids learn how to play.
At a Richmond nonprofit called Guitars Not Guns, the idea is to get kids into music before they get into trouble.
A lot of the kids don't have a lot of things in their life. I was one of those kids. I've grown up in Richmond myself.
The Richmond chapter, part of a national program, began 2 years ago. The program recruits at-risk youth, gives them free lessons, and lends them guitars so they can practice at home.
Because I learned lots of new stuff, like G chord, F chord, D chord, and C chord.
After 8 weeks of lessons, they're ready to show off what they've learned. And afterward, a big surprise.
I get to keep the guitar. It feels like I'm a rock star because I never had a guitar before. It's like so fun having a guitar. It's like a present.
The program hopes the gift will empower kids to choose music over gangs, drugs, and crime, something Jay knows well.
It saved me from a lot of problems. I've had a lot of friends who have had struggles in life, and some of mine have been healed by this thing here.
This is Christopher Connolly for CNS News.
This is Samir Kish, the co-owner of Pride Supret in San Francisco's Mission District. And this is what happens when you try to look at his ball without asking first.
We just wanted to ask you about your ball.
This is his brother Nabil, who agreed to an interview after we asked politely. He explained that he and his brother have grown protective of their ball over the years because they've missed getting the world's record at least a dozen times, and they don't like spies.
This Samir, my brother, and me. And here is some bears. This rubber band is gonna be added on the big one. We're gonna keep going forever.
But the brothers have some new competition just up the street in Noe Valley. Meet Mike. Mike is the manager of Tuggy's hardware store.
My name is Mike Gutierrez from San Francisco. This is my ball. Her name is Roberta, like rubber with a T-A, Roberta. And that's her. She's 185 pounds. Tomorrow, Saturday, is her 1-year birthday, actually. And she gets fed rubber bands daily. We have rubber bands. Some are big, some are small. Luckily today I have larger rubber bands that fit her waistline. This is basically what I do every day.
But what's the point? Well, you and I might not care about big rubber band balls, but this place does. Ripley's is where you go to see San Francisco's world-famous cork donkey. Then there's a bug made of car parts, a weird baby face made of push pins, a moose of nails, and a bunch of other stuff. The museum also owns the world's biggest rubber band ball, which they bought from a man in Florida for $50,000 and then threw into one of their museums. Which means the previous record holder is no longer working. That's great news for Sam, Nabil, and Mike, and great news for San Francisco. This is Justin Jewell for CNS News.
That's it for this edition of CNS News. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm Christina Lopez.